Are we good? All right, there we go. All right, everybody, welcome. My name's Ian Dunkel. I'm a senior product marketing manager for the AppExchange, and today we have a really awesome session for you guys. It's called Demystifying AppExchange, Insider Tips for Success. We have a couple fantastic entrepreneurs here who can kind of talk about their entrepreneurial journey with launching on AppExchange and growing their business from there, and some tips that they've gathered along the way. I know that probably over the last couple of days we've learned a lot about building more on the platform, probably a lot more about AppExchange, so it's really also nice to hear about a couple entrepreneurs and that story along that journey. But just in case this is your first session in the AppExchange Den, just wanted to align everybody. AppExchange is kind of an ecosystem. For it to exist and to work appropriately, we have to make sure that there's value coming for our customers as well as for our partners. So for our customers, they love AppExchange because it's the leading business app marketplace. It's where they can go to find apps that are already built or integrate with Salesforce. They've gone through some sort of security review, and they can see which apps are delivering value to other customers because we have over 60,000 peer reviews who will leave ratings and comments about all of these applications. So they know they can come here, find trusted applications that can help enhance or extend their Salesforce investment. And for our partners, partnering with Salesforce and really joining the AppExchange give them a few advantages as well to help them become successful. So the first one is, like I said, customers are coming to AppExchange to find these applications. 83% of our customer base has at least one app from the AppExchange. So they're not small customers or large customers that are using it. It's really everybody, both domestically and internationally. So over 150,000 customers across 100 countries have access to AppExchange, and we'll go visit the AppExchange to find that technology. Next, they have access to our platform, so they can build completely on our platform. They can build composite apps, so they're part of the platform, maybe integrating through our workflows, or they're integrating with our data, and they're built kind of off-platform, and they're integrating in from just a data perspective. But they get to work with this API-first, very trusted single platform that can scale with them from the smallest businesses to the largest trusted brands in the world. And then finally, it's access to partners. So the ability with over 3,000 apps on the AppExchange to partner with other partners. A lot of our partners will go partner with other partners to create more robust solutions so they can go to market together. Because especially if they're built more on the platform, they're working in kind of the same platform, similar data model. But it also goes beyond that. It's kind of this access to this full ecosystem where our partners are able to come to events, network with each other, also find customers. So advantages for both our customers and partners together to create a thriving ecosystem. And for those of you who don't know it, the AppExchange has actually been around for a while, back to 2006. And in the first 5 years, we hit a major milestone, which was 1 million installs. And these are installs into Salesforce orgs. So that could be anywhere from 5 to over 10,000 users. So you can see, even in the first 5 years, this really started to deliver a lot of value for our customers and our partners. And over the next 5 years, that figure quadrupled to 4 million installs. And we continue, and we expect this growth to continue, and we look forward towards 2020. Salesforce knows we have to continue to invest in our ecosystem, continue to make sure it has value for our partners and value for our customers as we look to break 10 million installs by 2020, all built on top of what IDC predicts will be a $70 billion partner ecosystem. So I promise that's all I will be talking about today. I know you really want to hear from our entrepreneurs. So we have Geetha and Chuck, who are both CEOs and founders of their respective companies, which they'll tell you about. What I think is really cool is they kind of come from a developer background, so they can talk to you a lot about kind of what that story looks like. But really, when we think about the power of AppExchange and kind of even when we look around here with Trailhead, the ability to learn about the platform and use it as a way to launch a business is extremely powerful. So with that, Geetha, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay. Oh, right. That one. Okay. You guys can hear me? Okay. So as a way of introduction, my name is Geetha Vallabhaneni, and Ian asked us to summarize ourselves before we started our companies, and it's always a tricky thing. How do you summarize a life? but I will try. I was born in India. My father is a farmer. So the picture over there is not my dad, but it's very close. That's how we plowed our fields, actually. And then I, through various scholarships and qualifying to engineering through scholarships, I have gotten into computer science. And when I got out of college, I started working for Sun Microsystems, and I worked on the Solaris kernel stuff. So I was level 3 support, so by the time the core dumps have gotten to me, customers are super pissed off. You know, Fidelity's production system is down. And so what it taught me, though, working with customers directly in those serious kind of situations is importance of acknowledging somebody's problem, that there is, you know, a crash, and I'm working on it, as opposed to just trying to be defensive. So that later on comes in handy when you're working on your own company, and first of all, to deal with employees as well as your own customers, partnership conversations. So that was a really valuable lesson. And I mean, learning about operating systems and virtual memory layers and hardware address translation layers, that's all fun. And then I worked on the compiler backend stuff too. So we were taking binaries that were generated by the Spark compilers and analyzing whether the compiler has done a good job or not for the architecture. So we were looking at, you know, prefetch instructions, looping optimization, and stuff like that. So I truly call myself a nerd. Those things excite me. And as I went through leadership training within Sun Microsystems, a lot of the people kind of gave me the feedback. Whilst you're good at technology, you also are good with like the skills of talking to people, engaging people. You got to pursue something outside. And that's really when I started thinking about what else could I do? And then I jumped to doing sales engineering. And that's, again, yet another fascinating field, because a lot of the times when we're engineers, we're kind of isolated from everything else. So when I sold technology like Java virtual memory stuff and transaction tracing in enterprise software stuff. So when you walk in, there's a bunch of engineers on the other side challenging you and putting you on the spot, and it's up to you to really know your technology and understand their needs. So just to set the background of, like, really, for me, it all came in handy when I started my company, because a lot of the times, if we don't understand a sales cycle and what it takes to talk to customers, I can see some entrepreneurs struggle with that. So that's the background, and I like to run for an exercise. And I'm also known to express my opinions, so you can find me talking about various issues in the community and political spectrum and tech spectrum. So that's, in a nutshell, who I am. So Luminix was started in 2011. So while I was working as a sales engineer, we were using Salesforce as a platform for the CRM stuff. At that time, mobile in the consumer space was taking off, but enterprises were still trying to understand how that would come into their environments and how their employees and customers would use it. So we were trying to come up with this, like, grandiose plan of having Salesforce data on a mobile device, running these, like, super fancy analytics to dictate how people would use their data. But then the more we talk to users, again, another really good point to keep in mind, please talk to the users that you're building the solution for. What we heard again and again, Salesforce is great. It's a cloud solution. It gives us everything we want. But if I don't have a network connection, now all of my business processes are inaccessible to me, right? So for example, take Kraft Foods, or these are all our customers: Caterpillar, Baxter Healthcare, Wonderful Group, Remy Martin, people who make cognac. Their users are out in the field, walking into a store and taking orders and, gathering information. If there's no network connection, they have to go back to writing it on a paper and then come back to enter it in Salesforce. So we've designed an offline synchronization engine. So you would install our mobile application. It downloads all of your Salesforce data, metadata, everything, so you can keep working. And then it'll synchronize when you're back at home or a hotel or a coffee shop. So that's truly who we are. Our synchronization engine scales. It can store millions of records offline. It can execute business logic. You can customize the interface. So, and then again, I talk about this really actively too for people who are starting companies. We all read about overnight successes, but that's not the real story of what happens in Silicon Valley, right? It's a marathon, especially if you're working on business software, enterprise software. So it takes a while to establish yourself. So we started in 2011. And this is really a fortunate end of 2012. We had our first contract signed by a customer, and they actually signed up for 3 years. And that was a huge testament to our team, our technology. And things didn't work, right off the bat because we still were in early stage, right? But the fact that we were persistently working with them and making sure they understand what the problem was and we were fixing right away. So that turnaround time really matters. So getting those first 2 or 3 customers is really key. And then in 2014 is when we really scaled, when we got customers like Heineken and Kraft Foods. Once you land a big brand like that, no longer customers are asking you, will you be around next year? Because, Kraft Foods bought from us, and they must have done their homework, right? So it takes, about 3 years to truly build an enterprise software offering and gain trust. So when I'm thinking about AppExchange, what worked, these are some of the things that I really want to share with you guys. Don't reinvent the wheel because there are parts of like Salesforce that's already built for you. So before you're thinking about any feature, look under setup, system information. Probably there are things that you can leverage. Especially LMA, right? There's a license management software that's already included with your package. So don't build that. Because managing licenses and keeping track of them is it's a major expense for a company. So tap into what's already built into Salesforce platform. The other thing we truly thought about is the configuration part. Since we are building for big customers, no 2 customers want the same offering, right? So if you don't think about how do I then allow them to configure, you end up rebuilding your solutions, and essentially you will become an implementation partner or a servicing company. So think of designing where you could configure a particular customer's environment through their Salesforce org. That's how we've sort of designed it. And then partner teams are great. Each of the partner team gets a Salesforce person and a technical person. They help you understand the ecosystem technology, so please tap into them. And then I can't speak loudly enough for the reviews. So the more reviews you have, the best experience. Other customers, will look at it and say, oh, wow, yeah, this company knows what they're doing and their technology actually works. So that's my part of the presentation.
Fantastic, thank you. And we'll have some time afterwards for questions if you want to dig a little bit deeper in there as well. But great overview, really awesome story. All right, next we have Chuck Liddell, who's the CEO of Valence App, and also, don't want to take away some of the fire, but a part of the incubator for a little bit, so we can hear about that, I'm sure.
Thank you. All right, so my name is Chuck Liddell. I'm the CEO of Valence. We're an ISV. And I'm going to tell you a story. I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that it's informative. And then I'll give you some sort of tips and tricks from the trials that we've gone through. But I have a bit of an eclectic background. I've always been an entrepreneur. I came by it honestly. But before I was doing Salesforce, I was an adjunct professor at a university. And then after that, I was a volunteer firefighter for a while. And then before we got into Salesforce technical architecture, we had a vending machine company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We actually manufactured these vending machines that are here on the screen and distributed them around the world. And we built a telemetry platform on top of them. So the group of people that were involved in doing that were a natural team of engineers that had this knack for doing complex things. And we kind of stumbled into Salesforce. Some other things about me. You may have seen me wearing this sash at Dreamforce. I have a bit of a reputation. I have 22, 23 Salesforce certifications, depending on how you count. So my fiance made me that sash. I wear it at Dreamforce every year. It's a lot of fun. I live in Hawaii. Our company is headquartered in Honolulu. And when I'm not doing constant lots of things on Salesforce, I'm on a bicycle somewhere, doing a triathlon or training or just riding. So let's talk a little bit about our group. So our first company was Kapu Honu, and this company was involved in the ice machine business. And it was really just a collection of engineers doing interesting and complex things. People would bring us challenges, and we didn't want to be a telemetry company originally. Someone brought us a problem. They said, hey, I've got these ice machines, and I'm trying to put them in Africa and in the middle of Australia, and I want them to be rugged and durable. I want to be able to monitor them remotely and understand them. And we said, okay, well, that sounds like an interesting problem. We'll see if we can help you solve that. So we learned a lot about IoT. We built a telemetry platform. We figured out all this kinds of stuff about microcontrollers. So just a team of really smart people solving problems for other people that they brought to us. And so we were doing that for years, and people started bringing us Salesforce problems to solve. They said, hey, I've got this thing called Salesforce, and I'm trying to do something really weird with it. And can you help me? And we would always say, yeah, we've never done that before, but I don't think anyone ever has, and we'll take a shot at it and see what we can do to help you out. So we started solving all these really unusual problems in Salesforce. Weird community stuff, really interesting use cases. And we developed a reputation for being a small team of people that really understood what we were doing. And if you had something unusual on the platform, or funky or complex, then you would bring it to us, and we would fix it for you. And other partners started relying on us. They started feeding us the interesting and the complex jobs that were too hard for other people. So we got this great reputation. And naturally, if people were bringing you hard problems on Salesforce, you do a lot of integration work, lots of integration work. This needs to talk to that, and this needs to talk to that, and it doesn't work today, and how do we solve this problem? So we were building these integrations over and over and over for years. We've been doing this for a decade. And our choices were, pick a product, or don't use a middleware product and do something else. And something else was always build it from scratch. There wasn't a framework. There wasn't a library. There wasn't a springboard where you could start an integration that wasn't from scratch. And it felt silly. We kept reinventing the wheel. We kept building Delta Sync and error handling and tracking of movement of records over and over and over. So we thought there's got to be a better way to do this. Surely there's some sort of framework out there to make integrations simple that is Salesforce oriented, right? Not an any-to-any kind of solution, but right in Salesforce. So that was this idea that we had. And so we shifted. We were a services project company for a long time, did a lot of projects, a lot of consulting. And we said, listen, we're going to take this idea, we're going to run with it. We're going to turn this into a real product. We're going to give it to people because we're community builders. We love tool building. We love community building. We want to put this in people's hands. So that was last June. And around the same time, there was a blog post saying that the Salesforce Incubator was starting this fall in San Francisco. And stay tuned for more information, which was not really forthcoming. There wasn't any more information. So we started asking around, saying, who knows about this thing? Who knows about this cohort? We want to be in it. We want to be part of this. Who do I talk to? Who do I call? Who do I harass to be part of this thing? And it worked. And we got into the first cohort of the Salesforce Incubator. And James, who is sitting here, and some of our other developers, we moved to San Francisco for 5 months. And we sat here and we built a product for the first time ever. We'd never been a product company before. We built complex things for other people. We thought, we'll do it for ourselves. It can't be that hard. It's a lot harder than we thought it was going to be. But we got through it. And we went live on the AppExchange this May with our first product. We're now an ISV, long live the king kind of stuff. And that's been a really interesting journey. And we're trying to solve a problem for the whole ecosystem. And it's a whole different level of scale than we were used to in the past, right? We're always solving one company's problem or one person's problem. And now we're trying to solve everyone's problem at the same time in a very complex domain, which is integration. And that's been a real journey for us. But I have some thoughts on that journey that I'd like to share. So I've got a few of these, and we're going to move into Q&A right after this. So if anybody wants to ask questions about these as we go through, that's totally fine. I don't mind being interrupted. Lovely. Don't repeat the same mistake twice. OK, so the very first thing is, what am I going to build, right? And this is actually kind of important. And a really good mindset to have is there's something that you are good at, And it's also probably something that annoys you. I find that anger is actually a good motivator here, right? So our product came out of this idea of like, man, we're building this over and over and over, and we're so sick of it. And why isn't there something that does this? And it should exist, and it doesn't, so we're going to make it. And I think that's a really good place to start. If there's something that bugs you and irritates you, then it means you're passionate about it. And it means you have the energy to get through the hard times that Geetha was talking about, right? It takes years to really be successful with this kind of thing. You need that passion that's going to keep you going in the low moments. So another facet of that passion is you're never going to have the most money. There are other companies trying to do the same thing you're doing. If you're the only one doing something, it's a bad idea because it means there's not a market for it. If you don't have competitors, it's not a real product. So you have competitors. They're better funded than you. They have a bigger team than you do. Maybe they have more experience than you do. So what do you have that they don't? And the answer is passion. You have passion, and you have some sort of expertise in something. You can grab onto that and run with it. So that's my first point. The second point is sample your market. Ask people what they want. We had an idea when we first built our product. We said, we're developers, and we like frameworks, and we want a framework for us and other developers like us, and everyone wants a framework. And when we started building a framework, and then we started doing customer discovery at the same time, and we realized that actually our product really wasn't for developers at all. Developers were important. They were part of it because they had to build adapters and things to extend our integration orchestration thing that we were building. And the real end customer was an admin. An admin was the one that had the data headaches. An admin was the one that had to work with the data all the time, was responsible for getting the reports to the right people. And we didn't really realize that until we started asking more questions. So we were a little bit late to the game on customer discovery, but we got there. And it's incredibly important. And it's about where do you apply your finite resources. You have finite time, finite money, finite folks involved. So where's the most bang for your buck? And if you don't ask questions and figure out what people actually need, then you're going to build the wrong thing. So customer discovery is super important. I'm talking about a lot of it, like hundreds of people, hundreds of conversations with people about what they really need. Okay. One of the great things about Salesforce building on as an ISV is that a few of these problems are totally solved for you that you would normally have to do. So distribution, not a problem at all, right? You put your listing up in the AppExchange. Someone says, click, I want to install it. We're checkout, so they actually pay for it on the AppExchange. So I don't have to worry about distribution at all, right? People buy my thing, they install it, they're golden. So I've totally solved, I don't have to worry about it. So a very important exercise to think about what you have and what you don't, and don't worry about the stuff that is taken care of, right? So that's important. And then you probably hear this one a lot, but start security review as soon as you possibly can stand to do it because it takes a long time, it's difficult, it's onerous. It's been that way forever. That's super important because you just can't list your product if you don't do security review. And then number 5, I had a little trouble with for a long time, which is that I didn't really want people to know that I didn't know everything about what I was doing. And especially as you heard a little bit about my history, I was a developer and then an architect, and then I kind of became more of an entrepreneur and a business person. And so I really, Mike Creedon from the incubator group said this the best to me. He said that you were a tech founder, and now you're just a founder, and we dropped the tech part. And in order to drop the tech part from tech founder, I had to ask a lot of questions about things I didn't understand, financing and business and how to build strategic alliances and all kinds of stuff. And it wasn't until I started admitting weakness and saying, hey, I don't know how to do this, or hey, I'm just not good at this, that I actually made a lot of advances and made progress. And then finally, you have to be a complete information sponge. Related to number 5, it's to start reading like crazy as much as you can get your hands on, to start absorbing information, because inevitably you're focused on one thing. That's where that passion came from. But if you're going to be a company's a totally different thing than a person that used to be good at something. And there's so much that you don't understand and you don't know that you need to absorb. So I started reading books like crazy, going to talks, asking people questions, and gaining that information had immediate impact on everything that we did as a company. We made all sorts of zigs and zags as an immediate result of something I read or somebody I talked to. So yeah, I said you could ask questions, but then I just talked incessantly. One last thing, I didn't really cover what we are today well enough, so I'd like to go back to that. So we're building native integration in Salesforce, not a middleware server, not something that is the triangle where you're talking to it and then it talks to what you want to talk to. Native in Salesforce, it's an app you install off the AppExchange, and then you configure it in your org. Same credentials, same screens, it's built in Lightning. You talk directly from your Salesforce to something else. And we made it extensible. There are Apex classes you can write to talk to other systems. There are Apex classes you can write to do data filtering and data transformations. And those are packageable. There's custom metadata types. So you can actually build extensions for it. You can build pre-built mappings for it and put them on the AppExchange as products. Other people can build them and sell them to you. We want to build a whole ecosystem around this thing. And then finally, an admin ties it all together at the end. All the extensions, all the packages pull back together in one interface. An admin can see what is everything connected to this org doing? Where's the data going? What happened to it? When did it fail? Why did it fail? Can I have partial success? We handle scaling. Integration scaling is always a huge headache. Hey, I built an integration. It works for a couple hundred records. I throw 100,000 records at it, and it falls over screaming. And we just got rid of that, right? We said, hey, scaling, let's not make that a problem anymore. Let's just bake that into the framework. So we're trying to really give everyone a single place to command and control all of their data movement on the platform. So anyways, thanks. Questions?
Thanks, Chuck. Thank you. And number one, always, that really resonated with me too, because we used to say, you know, search it on AppExchange. If you're still annoyed you can't find it, consider building something and putting it up there. So I love that, especially turning that anger into something positive. So why don't we, if you want to come forward, we can just open it up for any questions that you guys might have. I'll leave this mic with you and I can run the other one. Is this one working too? Okay. Any questions? Any at all?
How much did you spend on marketing?
Here, will you repeat that just so?
How much did you spend on marketing? So AppExchange is there. You have the self-promotion is going to all those. Did you use the AMP model with the Salesforce, sign up for that one, coming to Dreamforce or Trailhead and having a booth there? And did it result in more customers and all those?
So we may have different answers. We'll both answer. So we spend very little on marketing. Haven't really done AMP or anything like that. And that's partly because we came with a pre-built network, right? We've been consultants for years. We know the space. A lot of people know us. So all we had to do was to turn on the faucet here was just go to everyone that we knew and say, hey, we built a thing. Will you take a look at it? And then we've used LinkedIn a lot. We've done a lot of reach out on LinkedIn. Our COO, who isn't here, his name is Scott, has probably reached out to 1,000 or 2,000 Salesforce admins on LinkedIn saying, hey, can I get 10 minutes of your time just for customer discovery, really? Like, hey, take a look at something, can I ask you some questions? And that's been great for us. So we really don't do much marketing. And then, as a small company, your CEO is your salesperson, right? People come up to me and chat with me, and that's where we're getting most of our sales.
So I bootstrapped the company. I raised zero money from outside. And if I'm doing it differently, I would certainly tap into AMP and doing case studies with them. It does really work. For me personally, since we are such a focused and targeted application, they started finding us on AppExchange and having about, I think now we have 96 5-star rating reviews. So that's huge. That's why I put that in red letters on my slide, is like, if you could get your customers to speak for you, that's just the best, nothing works like that.
I can keep asking. Someone else,
We'll come back to you in a second.
Hi, question is to both. You both started as developers, engineers, and moved into more of a leadership business role. What skills did you need to develop that you didn't have before in order to grow into that new role?
Maybe I can take a stab at this. So as a technical person, we are so focused on finding the solution to a problem, we often miss so much that's happening outside of our focus. Even reading like body language, how many engineers do you really think are tuned into that, right? We're not. That's just by our training, we miss a lot of, so I'd say social skills. And this it's starting to sound basic, but it's absolutely true. And then two, often when we argue, when engineers argue, we're really so much focused on the point we're arguing on, we're often missing out a rapport and focusing on what the team thinks as a whole and how to find best solutions. And then customer interaction, as I said. I think I personally always say, every tech founder needs to do sales for at least 2 years, along with their salesperson. Then you truly realize, because a lot of the times people so easily fire salespeople because they think they're doing a bad job. But to truly understand what it takes to sell to a customer, you have to be involved in sales process. I think those are some things I'd say: social skills, sales, and understanding what the team as a unit wants.
So I agree with everything you just said, by the way. Let's just start with that as a starting point. I think that first and foremost, you have to be incredibly honest with yourself. And what I mean by that is you have to figure out if you are capable of being this bigger thing that you haven't been before, or if the better path is to find people to team up with. Both totally viable, right? Are you the CEO or are you the CTO? That's a decision you have to make for yourself. For me, I was a CTO at a company, and I kind of moved into a CEO role, and I wasn't very good at it at first. And I thought, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I need to hire someone to work for me, but to work for me above me, right? To be my CEO. And I read a book, The Hard Things About Hard Things, I think Ben Horowitz, and I'd take a look at it if I were you. And I read it, and it's about being a CEO and making tough decisions. And I read the whole book and thought, you know, I am the right guy for this. This is me, and I can figure out how to do this. But there was a whole set of skills that I didn't have. Selling was one of them. Public speaking I had to get better at. And you have to just figure out if that's something that you're going to grow into or hire for, right?
Just to add, don't think of it as a, not to say what you said was incorrect. Don't think of things as bigger things, right? I think we have, naturally we are human beings, have a tendency to want to be in higher positions. But sometimes it's just a different position, not necessarily a higher position. Don't think of it that way. And like you said, some of us are not designed to do certain things, right? Like, or not, are not meant to do those, which is okay. That's right, exactly.
Yeah. Sal?
So you started as a single person. Like, how did you build up a team? Like, how much size you need to be a successful? Can a single person can do it, or we need a team to be successful?
Right. So I started with one engineer. It takes a lot of persuasion to have him work for free for a while. and then we recruited another engineer. Again, he was working for like very bare minimum salary. And I attribute this to honesty. So even today, when we are a bigger team and I'm recruiting people, I say, hey, look, the reality is 90% startups fail. So I'm not going to promise you that you will make millions of dollars from this company. Do you want to work with a very enlightened team where we really have a lot of fun? We have a daily team call. It's almost like a stand-up comedy hour. So it's like, you know, we built a super good team, and enlightened, very easy to work with kind of a team. And another thing we've done is have the new person sort of like dial into a couple of calls and have them work on a little piece of code with us before they make up their mind. And most of the times they do. And having said that, though, that's all through personal networks. You have to have that sort of conviction, and don't promise anything that you can't deliver. So I always under-promise and over-deliver.
So this could be a very long answer. I'll try to keep it short. Engineers first, right? You need to build a product. But if you're building a product, there's vision behind it. There needs to be somebody with strong vision. It's almost always the person that starts the company, right? There's someone, the entrepreneur says, I'm going to do a thing. I've got vision. Here's what I'm going to build. So there are two things that sort of automatically creates and manifests. One is if you're not doing your own customer discovery, you'll fail. If the person with the vision isn't the same person having all the interviews, conversation after conversation, then you'll fail. If you're not an extroverted person, tough. You got to get out there and have the conversations yourself, or your vision won't be right. The second is that you also have to be the person that sells it for a while. Okay. You also have to be the person that sells it. If you don't like selling, tough. You got to do it. Yeah. We're not. All right, I'll try to wrap it up.
Don't listen to the voice.
Yeah. Great. All right, so you have to sell, you have to ask questions. So that ties back into your question, because you're hiring engineers to build, and you're doing everything else yourself for a while. You might be tempted to hire people to sell or to ask questions or interact with the public because you don't like to do it, or you think it's a waste of your time, or you're just afraid it's not your personality. Don't do that. Be front-facing and hired behind you to fill in the infrastructure, right? To build stuff, to do operations, HR, accounting, that kind of stuff. But you got to be the one in front.
Great. All right. Well, I really want to appreciate you two for coming here. Thanks for the great questions as well. If you guys have a couple more, I'm sure you guys can hang out for a couple more minutes and ask them. There's some great soundtrack behind us for us to jam out to.
And they drown us out, so we have to go.